What's up, everybody? Today is November 8th of 2021. Yesterday, news broke of the death of UB founding member Astro, following a short illness, as most headlines are listing. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about the alarming synchronicity between this and a couple of other major news stories from the past couple of days. And to understand what I'm talking about, it's important to have a basic grasp of the language of Gematria or Gematria, which is the study and observation of coding numbers into words and phrases. And like always, we use the simple alphabetic order 1 through 26 with its associated reduction or Pythagorean method. And then we're going to take a glance at English Gematria for the name Terrence Wilson, which is Astro's real name. And notice how in this significant English extended method, which most closely mirrors ancient Hebrew, Gematria, and Greek isopsephy, his name sums to 1107. And the date written, 1107, or November 7th, is when most of the world learned about the death of Astro, as news was not published until that date. Now, if you go back on my channel, you'll see that the last two videos I made were on the tragedy at Astroworld in Houston, Texas, at a Travis Scott concert. And in that video, I pointed out how bizarre it was that this tragedy occurred just 3 days after the Houston Astros were eliminated from the World Series. And that was strange enough. And then the very next day, we learned about the death of a musician named Astro. The Houston Astros this year just finished their 57th season as the Astros. And the crowd crush at the Travis Scott concert occurred on a date with 57 numerology. Terrence Wilson of UB40 was born in the year 57, making him 64 years old. And notice how Houston, Texas sums to 64 in Gematria. The other video I made the other day was on the death of Shawn Rhoden, a bodybuilder who died at the age of 46. 46, the number that links sacrifice, Houston, Texas, and Astroworld. But the most obvious connection between these two stories, which again we both learned about on November 6th, the same day. Before Travis Scott took the stage, there was this phrase on the video board that said, "See ya on the other side." And as it turns out, this was a tagline that was on a lot of the merchandise for the festival. Well, how strange is it that the last Instagram post made by bodybuilder Shawn Rhoden, who must have died within hours of that concert, finished with the sentence, "See you on the other side." What are the odds of that? Notice how UB40 has Gematria of 116, similar to Wilson, 1109, a number of ritual human sacrifice, and he died on November 6th, 11/6, which is an upside-down 9/11. Now, in my video on the Travis Scott show, I talked about how this was connected to the solar eclipse code, as many of these large events surrounding death are. And we talked at length about how the World Series and this concert were all connected to this long eclipse code. In fact, we talked about the number 9/11. There was a lot of occult symbolism at this show, and it's pretty clear to see it. You know, we have the all-seeing eyes in the hands. We have mentions of dystopian times. But perhaps the most telling is the poster that was made for the festival. And you'll see in the middle here, there's this pyramid-looking object. Now, especially with this split down the middle of the pyramid, this reminds us a lot of buildings similar to the Chichen Itza, for instance, which was, of course, built by the Mayans and often used for human sacrifice. And if you read up on the history of this temple, it does say that, archaeologists and historians all agree that there was human sacrifice that occurred at this temple. And think about how this is shaped similarly to the Luxor Hotel, for instance, which sat directly across the street from the Las Vegas Village where the 2017 Las Vegas shooting occurred. So this symbolism is very frequent in human sacrifice. And as we saw, this crowd crush was a real incident, a real tragedy. And certainly this Vegas shooting had real elements in it as well. One of the gods that was commonly attributed for human sacrifice was Yakowitz or Shakowitz. And as you'll see, it's likely he received human sacrifice. And what makes this so interesting is that Yakowitz was a mountain god of the Mayans. And this Travis Scott show was advertised, look at this, live at the mountain is where it took place. So this, along with the symbolism on the other poster, shows you that there's some sort of ritualistic intentions going into this festival. And I think that crowd crush was more or less a manifestation of that. So again, in that video, I talked about how it was connected to the solar eclipse code. And back in the year 2017, there was a highly significant solar eclipse. It was the first total solar eclipse to go coast to coast through the United States in 99 years. And in 2024, of course, we'll have another one that almost goes coast to coast. I talk a lot about the Society of Jesus, the military organization essentially of the Catholic Church. And their emblem is a sun with its corona visible around the edge, very similar to what we see on a solar eclipse. In English Gematria, the word Jesuit sums to 624. Terrence Wilson of UB40 was born on June 24th, the date written 624. June 24th, by the way, is also the founding date of modern Freemasonry, which is an extension, essentially, of the Jesuit order, and is very connected to the eclipse code as well, as I commonly discuss. News of this man's death broke on a Sunday, and notice how Sunday has near perfect base overlap with the word Jesuit in 3 of the 4 base methods. November 7th left 54 days in the year. In the alphabetic order, the word sun equals 54, and in reduction, Jesuit order, the nickname of the Society of Jesus, summing to 54 as well. The number 54 connected to sacrifice. In the reverse alphabetic order, the phrase ritual sacrifice sums to 251. And 251 is a prime number. Divided only by 1 and itself, it's the 54th prime number. And notice how the name Terrence Astro Wilson sums to 251 in that same method, both also sharing a 107. Now, if we measure from the date of the Great American Eclipse in August of 2017 to Sunday, when we got this news article, it was a span of 1,540 days. The number 1540, highly significant to the Jesuit order, whose official formation occurred in the year 1540. Using the standard alphabetic order, the phrase ritual sacrifice sums to 154. Notice how all of these news outlets are claiming that he died after a short illness. And in the language of Gematria, short illness sums to 154 in the reverse alphabetic order. And again, for anyone new to this channel, the reverse order is simply the standard 26-letter alphabetic order flipped backwards, where Z is 1, Y is 2, through A is 26. Clear to see how these ciphers complement one another in this study here. And notice how short illness also sums to 170 in ordinal. That's the reverse gematria of sacrifice, 170. Short illness and sacrifice also both sum to 73. The phrase ritual sacrifice sums to 73 too. And this man's name was Astro to the rest of the world. And Astro sums to 73 in ordinal. And in my video, in my video on this crowd crush, I talked about how it was connected to the Italian Hall disaster where 73 people died. And 73, solar eclipse, also 73. In Latin or Jewish gematria, the phrase ritual human sacrifice syncs up with the number 33. And what I failed to add to my post is that this man passed away, if I'm not mistaken, 33 weeks after his birthday. He died on November 6th, which is exactly 33 weeks after his birthday. And notice how the words eclipse and order both sum to 33. The Jesuit order shares 69 gematria with eclipse. The Jesuit order, again, the Masonic branch of the Catholic Church, which also has 69 gematria. Don't forget, 69 is the number that's on the middle of the Masonic arch, with the moon on one side and the sun on the other, signifying eclipse symbolism again. In ancient Hebrew, the word sacrifice sums to 347, the name Terrence Wilson, summing to 1347. And I couldn't help but notice that CNN's headline, when you punch this in the alphabetic order with this 40 numbered, calculated as a full number, you get the value of 602, which is another number that Astro 62 shares with Sacrifice 62. Of course, CNN also gave us some moon numbers, 720 like the date of the moon landing. The moon equals 283. It takes 29.5 days to complete a lunar phase. All numbers found here. Again, all because this is connection to astrology, and it's NASA that claims to travel through outer space, tasked with faking the moon landing back in the year 69. In English gematria, the word reggae equals 115, and the crowd crush at Astroworld was on the date 11/5. Notice how Terrence Wilson, was 23,511 days old when he died. And his name with nickname also has the 235 found in his age. So a very interesting story here. We're told it's just a short illness, but of course there's more to it. No way that all of this happens by chance, with him dying within a day of Shawn Rhoden making his Instagram post saying, "See ya on the other side." All right, guys, that'll do it for this video. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Peace, love, God bless. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.